That's why I say we give them strike, but we need something. Yeah, that's why I say you can solve that and get discuss. So okay, so she will do that. Yeah.
Are you done with the story? I'm done with, yeah. Alright, I just put in
Just let me know when you come. Yeah, but just very good.
I'm gonna get a water to me.
Staff, please assist, bring some water to the table. Thank you very much for waiting. We'll try to catch up on time on our second debate this morning. The debate will be between Team Kosrae versus Team Chuuk. Team Kosrae will argue for and Team Chuuk will argue against the proposition. Introducing Team Kosrae coming out from Kosrae High School. Debaters are Anne Timony, please come forward, and Tony Ferrer. And they are coached by Lina Roman George. Introducing Team Chuuk. Coming out from Chuuk High School, debaters are Daniel Nakayama and Hope Mori. And they are coached by Bryce Chuuk. Our unchangeable panel of judges and the timekeeper are still here for the second term. So, debaters, let's start. Introduction, proponents of the proposition, you have 3 minutes.
Before I begin our presentations, I would like to give this time to thank all parties involved in making this debate possible. Whether you work for the Supreme Court or you're just a kid watching on YouTube, you have made it possible for us to stand here today to represent our states and, of course, our nation. A few years ago, when the women of Kosrae were holding their annual celebration of International Women's Day, one village was told to stop all activities of the event by a senior pastor of their congregational church. They were told that the event was seen as disrespectful and a waste of a holiday to celebrate or recognize. Traditional church leaders have a huge influence over the way people think in Micronesia. And this further explains why people have become adapted to the belief that women should never be placed in any position that places them above men. This action shows that the modern Micronesian society has cast a silent looming threat over its people, over its women, that has kept them under the thumbs of men. This kind of thinking has become common and it needs to change. And that change will be possible with the resolution that states, and I quote, "Be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia shall adopt temporary special measures to ensure that each of the states has at least one female representative in Congress," end quote. We, the affirmative side, strongly believe that this resolution would not only benefit our women, but our nation. And to support that belief, we have prepared 2 main points. Main point number 1, more attention will be brought towards women's issues in the FSM. Main point number 2, this resolution will bring new perspectives and create a wider spectrum of solutions to the overall issues in the FSM. Judges, we must further push our women to pursue leadership positions. The negative side may say that the women of the FSM are fighting and taking a stand against inequality. So we do not need this resolution. But I would like to point out that the mindset of the people has not changed, as proven by the recent congressional elections. With this resolution put into place, women could take the opportunity to become leaders and change the old mindset that they used to have. We need to take the measures towards change that will develop our nation by bringing out more leaders from both genders to change our nation. Thank
Thank you, Team Kosrae. Team Chuuk, your introduction. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, judges, honorable guests, and worthy opponents on the affirmative team. Welcome to this year's FSM National Law Day debates. The resolution for these debates is, and I quote, "Be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia shall adopt temporary special measures to ensure that each of the states has at least one female representative in Congress." I am Daniel Nakayama, and my partner here is Rebuttal. As a negative team, we disagree with the implementation of these temporary special measures and believe that while they are well-intended, they are also problematic at the same time. In order to support our argument, we came up with 3 points to show why we should not pass this resolution. Our first point is that we should not pass the resolution because it is unjust. Our second point is that the resolution should not be passed because it goes against equality of opportunity and undermines the effort of candidates. Lastly, our third point was that the resolution should not be passed when there is a better alternative available. My partner here, Omori, will elaborate more on these points in her main speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Chuuk. At this time, main arguments, proponents of the main proposition, you have 15 minutes.
Judges, according to the Interparliamentary Union as of February 2019, in a compilation of women in parliaments, there are 193 countries that are member states of the United Nations as of today. And out of these countries, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, and guess what the last country is? Our very own Federated States of Micronesia. What is the point of being a democracy if 49.2%, according to the Population and Vital Statistics report from the United Nations dated January 2019, of our people's voices are being held back? This resolution was introduced because of the very fact that our Constitution was written in black and white 39 years and 9 months ago for our people, but our women's voices are still being held back. 4 attempts from Pointe, 2 attempts from Kosrae, 1 attempt from Chuuk, no attempts from Yap. The result, there is still no woman who has been able to make it into Congress. Judges, this resolution must be passed to further push and encourage our women to pursue leadership positions. This is very significant for future references for our nation to develop now instead of doing nothing, to bring out capable leaders from both genders that can help develop or bring that change into our island nation. Our first main point is that by passing this resolution, more attention would go towards women's issues in the epicenter. Many men are ignorant when it comes to issues regarding our women, for they do not fully understand how it is to be in a woman's shoes. Of course, women actually face many issues in the epicenter, in which include underrepresentation, domestic violence, negative stereotyping, disadvantages cultural views on proper roles, and lastly, sexual violence and exploitation. Big letter A, women face many issues in the epicenter. In our nation, women are not fairly or properly represented. To this very day, there has not been one single woman to make it into Congress. Even in the recent special elections, the only female candidate also did not make it. By passing this resolution, we would be able to further advocate proper representation of women in Congress. Another major problem women face in the epicenter is domestic violence. Women are the main victims of domestic violence in the epicenter. For the past year in Kosrae, as stated by the acting Attorney General Snyder Simon, the majority of reported domestic violence cases were between legal spouses and de facto spouses, showing that mostly women undergo domestic abuse, married or not, as long as they are under the same roof. Despite having a law to prevent this certain issue, domestic violence is still a huge problem in the epicenter. Another main issue that women go through is negative stereotyping or views that are implemented towards women. Women here are viewed as incapable of handling this certain seat. According to our state's economic administrator, Heidi R. Floyd, being the only female administrator in Kosrae's Department of Economic Affairs and Resources, it takes much more effort to influence the other administrators in her office when it comes to decision making. She states, and I quote, "It would take paragraph by paragraph just to drive it into their heads, whereas my male colleagues can make decisions on the spot, little explanation needed," end quote. Women in the epicenter are thought of as aggressive in making decisions and jumping to conclusions, which is why it takes women much more effort to get their ideas addressed. This just proves to us all how much the capabilities of women are doubted and belittled. Another huge problem that our women go through in the FSM is the disadvantageous cultural views on the proper roles between men and women. Due to our culture, our mentalities have been thinking that women are mostly fit to take on domestic responsibilities and leave the political and economic seats to men. Little do the people of the 21st century know is that women were actually the major decision makers for men in the past. According to a micronesian seminar from 2008 on the roles between men and women, the roles between men and women actually complemented each other in the past, where women would take care of our lands and men would enrich it. Women also contributed in decision making when it came to disputes over our lands, which was very important to our people of the past and even to this very day. This comes to show that if we were to talk about the culture in the past, women actually played a major role in society, and without them, our community would not be able to function. But due to foreign influences, men went from enriching their lands to enriching their wallets. The once shared responsibilities came to wither as men enrolled in schools first and took more interest in political and economic fields. But as we can see today, women and men are both enrolling in school, and women have also taken more interest in issues regarding our society. Women like Yolanda Joa More, founder of One World, Shinobu M. Ko, one of the founding members of the Chuuk's Women's Council, and Marilyn Panuelo, founder of Mad Moms, have become inspirations to women and the youth as of today. Women have developed equal capabilities to men, but have never been given an equal opportunity to voice out. Why? Are you a man? Asked the mother of Yosin G. Segra, as she was told that her daughter was running for Congress. Even the elderly women have been adapted into thinking that these seats were only meant for men. We cannot ignore the fact that our mentalities have been twisted into thinking such a way, for this is not originally how our culture has always been. The final main issue that women deal with is that they are the main victims of sexual violence and exploitation. According to the 2018 Trafficking Persons Report on the FSM, found in www.referral.org, the FSM is at Tier 2 of human trafficking, and women of all ages are especially targeted for countries like the US and even its territory, Guam. The worst cases majorly involve women being forced into prostitution and girls of young ages being sexually exploited. Despite the current efforts to prevent human trafficking in the FSM, the progress is little to none. Proper women representation through Congress could lead to more attention towards women issues and direct a stronger approach to this issue and all the other issues previously mentioned. Big letter B. This resolution would help alleviate the issues mentioned in big letter A. Men cannot understand the issues women go through. Women can talk to other women about things like pregnancy or giving birth openly, whereas men cannot. With a woman in Congress, these issues will be better alleviated and acknowledged as to find effective solutions to deal with them. Women will be able to display their capabilities that would otherwise be hidden under bias and culture. In fact, there are women with enough merit to obtain a seat in Congress. An example of such a person is private lawyer Yosin G. Segra. Yosin has the educational background and enough experience to prove that women are also able to lead. Without this resolution, these talents would be wasted and unutilized. The lack of congresswomen could be accredited to the social bias that the people of the FSM have towards women, but nepotism also plays a huge role in the voting process. Culture is the only thing keeping women away from Congress, as admitted by our Lieutenant Governor, Honorable R.K. Lena. As we all know and have observed, the majority of our people vote through nepotism. Without this resolution, women won't be able to showcase their capabilities, and the trend of degrading women will continue. The government already has plans put into place to improve the social values of women, in trust with the Human Rights Treaty regarding the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. More specifically, Part 1, Article 5, Sexual Stereotyping and Prejudice, in which the goal is to, and I quote, modify the social and cultural patterns of conduct of men and women, end quote. This is what our government is in dire need of. With this resolution in place, women would relinquish the idea of themselves being below men. We can actually bring back the complementary roles between men and women from the past, and the issues of women in the FSM would be properly addressed and alleviated. Main point number 2, wider spectrum of overall issues in the FSM and new perspectives on how to resolve them. Not only will issues concerning mostly women be addressed more, but the women will provide their own views on every issue that the FSM is currently facing. New voices are what our nation is in need of if we wish to become more developed in the future. We have also prepared 3 sub-points to support our second main point. Big letter A, new perspectives to development. These voices could shine a light on different methods of development, healthcare, etc. There is currently a women's group dedicated to improving They welcome both women and men of all ages to help plant more vegetation for the betterment of our environment. There is also a program in the FSM that involves the youth called Youth for Change. The sole purpose of this program is to acknowledge and influence the youth of Micronesia to advocate for anti-corruption, to improve our country's development. The executive director of this program is Sylvia Elias. And yes, she is a Micronesian woman who started off like we did, growing up with the same resources that we use, and being raised in the same country as all of us, where women cannot let their voices shine. Big letter B. Excluding women means almost 50% of the population isn't contributing to new ideas. Women have not been able to gain seats in Congress, meaning that nearly 50% of the FSM population are left unheard and cannot contribute to new ideas. A country's power is in its people. If the people have no voice, then the country cannot grow nor prosper. Not only will new ideas be withheld, but issues concerning women are left off the table. As stated in the FSM Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, it states, and I quote, no law may deny or impair freedom of expression, peaceable assembly, association, or petition, end quote. Despite this being in our very own Constitution, people stay ignorant and do not abide by it. Having women in Congress through this resolution could let their voices be heard, and these issues will be put onto the table. Our last big letter, C, temporary special measures. The short-term solution is what the women of the FSM need in order to be able to express their needs and wants. It's as stated by former congressional candidate Yosin Sidra. She states, and I quote, this will act as a temporary band-aid to the lack of women representation, end quote. These temporary measures will ensure that the women of the FSM will be heard and their skills will be fully acknowledged by the people. It is true that women should work hard, but there is little to no progress in that regard. According to the president of Kosrae Women's Association, Mrs. Chuuk this is their number one goal out of all of their sustainable development goals, in which is to implement at least 1 seat in Congress for a woman. If this does not work out as expected, it can always be vetoed, but that should not be a problem. For regardless of special measures, the qualifications to run for Congress still stand. If the women running for Congress have the right qualifications and background, she should gain that reserved seat. Regardless, passing this resolution would still will give women an appropriate opportunity to help resolve overall issues in the FSM by sharing their own knowledge with the opposite gender. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Kosrae. At this time, opponents rebuttal to proponents main argument. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, worthy proponents. Judges, we will show you why we don't agree with the proponents' solution. They mentioned, what is the point of being a democracy? They mentioned something about how we are a democracy. But how is passing the resolution an act of democracy? A democratic government is giving people a chance to vote or listening to our people. This resolution violates our people's rights. Our people should be able to choose whoever they think best represents them. They also mentioned about how more attention will go to our women's issues. But how are we so sure that the women in that seat will address these issues? What if that women had different ideas? But not only that, the proponents are only looking at the fact that we don't have women in these seats, but are not looking at the problems to why women are not or don't run for these seats. In other words, this resolution is a top-down solution. This resolution is like building a house starting from the roof. How will the building be able to stand if we start from the roof instead of starting from the cement or the bottom? There are barriers that hinder women from running for these seats. And we should solve these problems if we want to have women in these seats. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Chuuk. Proponents response to opponents rebuttal. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you as well for the opponents. Allow me to give an outline of our main argument. We mentioned that, or asked, why should we be called a democracy if our people's voices are being held back? And they attacked us by saying that our people should have a choice to vote for who they want. I have 2 words for that: nepotism and culture. Nepotism and culture is the one influencing people to vote for who they vote for. If we have a house and a family, a mother, a father, and children, who would influence who to vote for? Of course, it would be the father. They also mentioned why the reason women do not run. It's because of the very fact that they are being held back. Also, how our traditional leaders, not only our government leaders, we know that there are no legal barriers, but it is our traditional and cultural, or what people think of as traditional and cultural barriers that are blocking women from running. She also mentioned that a house should not start from the roof. We already have that house without a roof. We already have women running for Congress. It's the roof left, and that can be made and built with this resolution. For as we can see, no women has made it even till this very day. And they also admitted themselves that there are barriers that block women from running for Congress. So I believe that they do agree with us in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Kosrae. At this time, let's hear the main argument. Opponents, main presentation. You have 15 minutes.
Good morning, judges, worthy proponents, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hope Mori, and my partner here is Daniel Nakai. As the negative team, we are here today to prove and show you why this resolution should not be passed. The resolution states, and I quote, "Be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia shall adopt temporary special measures to ensure each of the states has at least one female representative in Congress." End quote. Before I elaborate more on our reasons, let me go over all three of them. Our first reason was that the resolution should not be passed because it is unjust. Secondly, the resolution goes against equal opportunity and undermines effort. Lastly, the resolution is problematic and should not be passed when there is a better alternative solution available. Starting off with our first point, the resolution is unjust. This resolution would require that we reserve seats with elections only open to women in each state for the purpose of accelerating gender equality. The resolution is well intended, but it violates our Constitution and is discriminatory towards both men and women. In the FSM Constitution, in Article 4, Declaration and Right, Section 4, it states, and I quote, "Equal representation of the laws may not be denied or impaired on the account of sex, race, ancestry, national origin, language, or social status." End quote. Of course, women do have the right to run for Congress, but are hindered by barriers, and while the resolution, to some extent, aims to compensate for such barriers, it fails to address the reasons why women are prevented from participating in leadership and decision-making. As a consequence, the proposed resolution would end up diminishing the justice and freedom of choice the Constitution gives to our citizens. In Article 4, Declaration and Rights, Section 1, it states, and I quote, "No law may deny whoever they think best represents them, and to mandate a specific group of individuals is not only unnecessary, but also unethical." Yes, we are signatory to international conventions relating to women's rights, such as the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. But do remember that one of our Constitution's purposes is to protect our people and their rights and to ensure justice. Judges, what good is our Constitution if we choose to overstep its boundaries just to violate the rights of our own people and their freedoms that was meant to be protected? Furthermore, the resolution does not promote gender equality and only serves to be flat-out discrimination against both men and women in the FSM. Gender equality is supposed to be equality between both genders, male and female. On the contrary, this is not the case, as the resolution does not promote gender equality whatsoever. The proposed resolution raises one gender over the other, in this case, women over men, which is not even close to any form of equality. Instead of pushing one gender over the other to promote equality, we should be doing more to make both men and women equal in the FSM. Our women did not ask our government to hand them seats in Congress and have our citizens' rights ignored just for the purpose of it. Now on to our second point. We should not pass this resolution because it is against equal opportunity and undermines effort. The reservation of seats based on gender is unfair to both men and women who would run for non-reserved seats in Congress. Our Constitution already allows anyone to run for Congress, provided that they meet certain requirements, and nowhere in the Constitution or FSM code dictates that gender is a requirement. Also, there are currently no reserved seats in Congress. Passing the resolution would undo this and require candidates to be female just to run for a reserved seat. Let's go back to the resolution. In one part it says, and I quote, temporary special measures to ensure each of the states have at least one female representative in Congress, end quote. The resolution would require that we reserve seats with elections only open to women. Above all, the resolution unnecessarily takes away people's fair chance of participation in Congress on the basis of their gender. This is only degrading to our women and does more to discourage them from running for office. One woman, a Maltese member of parliament, Marlene Ferrugia, opposed such temporary measures, otherwise known as quotas, by saying, and I quote, they want to get us elected through quotas as though we were tuna, end quote. There are women eager to stand for election in Congress. However, we should not treat them as if they are not capable of achieving success. Passing the resolution would be counterproductive because it undermines any time and effort women have dedicated to their political careers. Our women are strong and independent and do not need this reservation just to show that they are capable leaders. Instead, we should do more to help our women be able to compete with men for seats on equal terms. That brings us to our third and final point. The resolution should not be passed when there is a better alternative solution available. Even though the resolution is very well intended, it is problematic in many ways. The number of seats in Congress is limited to 14 seats. Claims to reserve seats would be problematic in states like Yap and Kosrae, where there is only one district and one at-large seat. Creating new seats reserved for women would circumvent the issue of having limited seats, but is too expensive for our budget. Trying to place such measures into play is like trying to fix a medical condition that belongs in the operating room with a band-aid. What we need to do is figure out the core reasons why women's political representation is low in the FSM. In general, women's political representation in the Pacific is very low. This is confirmed inside the Beijing Plus 20 Review of Progress in Implementing the Beijing Platform for Action in Pacific Island countries and territories, specifically in Critical Area G, Women in Power and Decision-Making, where it states, and I quote, women's political representation in the Pacific Islands region is the lowest of any global region. Across the 16 Pacific Island countries and territories that provided information for this report, on average, 13.6% of parliamentarians are women, which is 8% below the global average. However, the situation varies widely across the region, from French Polynesia, where 56% of parliamentarians are women, while there has never been a woman elected in the FSM. Excluding the French territories, the proportion of female parliamentarians is a woeful 5%. Traditional beliefs about men's and women's roles, women's limited social capital, and a lack of support from political representation in the region, end quote. The problem here is that the resolution does not confront the causes of this problem and expects that women would run with these temporary special measures, even if the barriers were still present. Aside from limited social capital, notice how the Beijing Plus 20 mentions that traditional roles about men's and women's roles and a lack of support from political bodies are some of the things behind poor progress of women's political representation. Setting such reservation is like expecting to reach a destination by sailing a boat in a river where no water flows, which is not possible. The question here is, what would cause water to stop flowing in a river? For this river, the answer is sociocultural barriers that stand in the way of women's equal representation. In the Beijing Plus 20, several recommendations were made by the 11th Triannual Pacific Women's Conference. They recommended, and I quote, that PICTs with technical and financial assistance from development partners continue to improve advocacy for women's leadership and the empowerment of women as leaders, including through 1. Community and voter awareness, 2. Information and training for women who wish to enter public life at all levels, 3. Training and capacity building for women in decision-making positions, 4. Advocacy with traditional leaders and leaders of faith-based organizations. In short, there are 3 things we must do to ensure that women are represented in Congress: educating our people, providing training and information, and supporting and motivating our women. The first thing we must do is educating our people. This is crucial because the values and importance of gender equality needs to be promoted directly to the people if we are to create an understanding and an enabling environment so our women will not be hindered by such barriers. Not only should we choose to spread awareness to our people, but to female candidates and male candidates so that they both may speak out on women's issues in the FSM and any issues in regards to gender equality. 2, we need to provide training to candidates and information. Providing capacity building support to all of our candidates is important so that they will be able to work competently and allow themselves to have bigger impact. This especially should target male candidates to ensure that they can effectively tackle gender inequalities and issues in decision making. Along with training, there needs to be more collection for information pertaining to gender issues. This fact is acknowledged in the FSM Gender Stock Take, Potential Strategic Approaches for Gender Mainstreaming for Gender Statistics, where it states, and I quote, there is insufficient collection, compilation, and analysis of sex disaggregated data and gender indicators across sectors. Such data are crucial to the identification, understanding, and addressing of gender inequalities. Building on SBC's Among Gender Statistics initiative, the government could be accompanied through a process of compiling key gender indicators in one comprehensive framework. Gender mainstreaming work can then be supported through relevant gender statistics and indicators, end quote. There should be more done to collect sex disaggregated data because it helps us to use resources more efficiently when addressing such issues, and to better understand the roots of gender-related problems and how to deal with them. Lastly, our government needs to support women. If we really want women to participate in decision-making and leadership, then we have to support and actively motivate them. There needs to be an interest created among women to take up leadership in our government. Giving our women a degrading cue to run for Congress will only do more to discourage them. Instead, we should directly support our women and let.
Thank you, Team Chuuk. At this time, let us hear what the proponents rebuttal to opponents' main argument. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, opposing side, for your arguments. For your first main point, you mentioned that this resolution is unjust and discriminatory against men. But I would like to ask you, what are the discrimination against women in the FSM? Men have been in the race far longer than women have. The women who have not even gotten past the starting line. And for your second main point, you mentioned that women are strong. I would like to state that culture is stronger. The women can fight all they want, but they won't change much with the way their culture is today. For the third main point, I would like to just say that with this resolution, this temporary Band-Aid, it will give us more time to focus and to concentrate on these issues so we can better our society and our government. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Kosrae. Opponents, response to proponent's report. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, proponents. Yes, the resolution is unjust. It puts women over men. I mean, it's unfair. If women were in these seats, if women were to run for these seats, they would need people's votes. But if we put reserved seats, then it would be unfair to men because men, or not just male candidates, but female candidates, because both ran for these seats. They gave hard work to run for these seats. And these reserved seats is unfair because it's more easier for women to get in these reserved seats. But not only that, the resolution violates our Constitution. It violates the people's rights to choose whoever they think best represents them. And we have better solutions available if we want women to participate in Congress, like educating our women, building capacity building and support to our women, and motivating them. Because women are running in these seats because they are hindered by barriers. And if we want them to run, then we have to solve the problems that they are facing in running for these seats. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Chuuk. At this time, let's listen to the proponent's summation and closing. You have 4 minutes.
To conclude our presentation on today's debate, I would like to restate our main points alongside their subpoints. Main point number 1, more attention will be brought to the issues that women face in the FSM. Big letter A, women face many issues in the FSM. Big letter B, these issues in big letter A could be alleviated. Main point 2, this resolution would bring new perspectives and create a wider spectrum of solutions to the overall issues in the FSM. Big letter A, new perspectives to development. Big letter B, excluding women means that 50% of the population would go without being able to contribute new ideas. Big letter C, temporary special measures are reasonable. I would like to emphasize that we need this resolution. 40 years have gone by since the founding of this the FSM Congress, but not once has there been a woman. That doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. We've had the time, but nothing has happened. We can't blame our government, and we can't blame foreign influences for what we've come to today. We can only blame ourselves. As stated in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, and I quote, "And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I shall make him a help meet for him." End quote. From the moment God made Eve from the ribs of Adam, men and women became incomplete without one another. As you can see, my partner and I don't advocate for women to exceed the power of men. We simply wish to see men and women work together to bring up our nation. With this resolution put into place, that could happen. Without it, women will be stuck, unable to voice out and unable to contribute any new ideas to the development of our nation. There are plenty of women in the FSM that have the drive and the merit to develop our nation economically and socially. And imagine, if those women came together with our men in Congress, they could accomplish so much. These measures would make it possible for women to take a step with utmost confidence towards the future they envision for themselves and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Kosrae. At this time, let's hear the opponents Summation, you have 4 minutes.
To quickly go through everything, I'll read out the resolution for this year's National Youth Law Day debate. The resolution stated, and I quote, "Be it resolved that the Federated States of Micronesia shall adopt temporary special measures to ensure that each of the states has at least one female representative in Congress," end quote. Over the course of this debate, my partner and I have shown you why the resolution should not be passed, and came up with 3 points to back up our argument. Our first point was that the resolution is unjust. The resolution unnecessarily violates the rights and freedoms of our citizens. Yes, we are signatory to the CEDAW, but that does not give us a free pass to ignore the rights of our citizens. Our second point was that the resolution goes against equality of opportunity and undermines effort. The resolution, while trying to promote gender equality in decision making, it ends up undermining effort and going against equality of opportunity by placing women over men and using reserved seats, which is unethical. The resolution lastly, our third point was that we should not pass the resolution when there is a better alternative solution available.
Thank you. It's time, the questioning part from judges. It is on time, so judges, it is your time.
So I have a question for each of the teams. So why don't I start with the proponents? So the proponents used culture both as a support for your argument and as something that you needed to overcome. So if one of your team members could tell me, what do you have to do with culture to either overcome or promote culture to achieve women in national Congress? So tell me how culture is going to play out, because you used it both affirmatively and negatively in your argument.
Thank you for your question. If I may ask, can you repeat it?
I'm sorry if I wasn't being very clear. So you've used culture as something that was in the background that promoted women traditionally, but it's also something negatively that holds them down. So ultimately, to get women into Congress or get them into national parliament, what are you going to have to do regarding culture? Are you going to, how are you going to approach culture?
My partner Ann will answer your question.
Thank you very much for that question. So yes, we use culture both negatively and affirmatively or positively. But we mentioned that our culture changed over time and our beliefs changed over time. We use the culture from the past or how our people used to be, where women and men were at equal levels. That was how it used to be in Micronesia. But as we can see today, due to where the men are at. As we can see in churches today, we have mixed both religion and our culture, seeing how women are on one side and men are on one side. That is one of the changes that has affected how our islands are today for the betterment of our nation. If we do that with our National Congress, no matter if the woman sits next to the man or is on the other side of the man, as in church, they could still have a voice with the man and they could have their ideas put onto the table. Thank you.
much for that. Okay, and for the opponents, if one of the team members could answer, you mentioned, yes, we have signed up, FSM has signed up for the convention to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. And as part of that, temporary special measures are not seen as discriminatory, as something to adopt. So if one of you could respond to, how do you respond to the fact that the FSM has become a party to CEDAW, and that does not consider temporary special measures as discriminatory?
Thank you for your question. Yes, we are signatory to the CEDAW, but we are also obligated to our Constitution. And in our Constitution, Article 4, Section 1, it states, and I quote, "No law may deny or impair freedom of expression, peaceable assembly, association, my partner will continue.
Is it okay if you can repeat your question again?
So the FSM is a party to CEDAW, the Convention to Eliminate All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And as a part of that convention, it is not considered discrimination to have temporary special measures. So given that FSM is a party to that, how do you respond that you have, you've taken a position that would discriminate against men or be discriminatory against men, if I've heard part of your argument correctly?
Well, of course, while we are signatory to the CEDAW and considers these temporary special measures not to be discrimination, we also have to take into account that while it is not considered discriminatory by the CEDAW, it is still problematic in many ways. Like, for example, the reservation of seats, as we stated in our negative main speech, you can't really reserve the seats for all the states. Like, for example, in Yak and Kosrae, where there's only 2 seats, one being the at-large seat and one being the district seat. And another example of the problems that can be caused by these temporary special measures is the fact that it does not directly address the main reasons why women are not in Congress or running for those seats. You can put up those reservations, but there's no guarantee that women will fill them out. Because, again, the resolution did not address those issues. It does not directly confront the core causes of the problem. Thank you.
Good morning. I have a question for the proponents. How would you encourage competition for those reserved seats that are set aside for women in order to preserve fairness and give voters' right to choose?
Thank you for your question. I believe the appropriate way to for that is to do it like a regular congressional election. They campaign, they say what they need to say, they fight for what they want to fight for, and if the people like it, they vote for them. Thank you.
Hi, first I wanted to congratulate both teams on being successful in your state debates, and it's great to have you here, and you've both done a fantastic job. My question will be for I'll ask both teams a question, why not? This one's for the opponents. Do you have any problem with the evidence presented by the proponents that the FSM is one of only 3 states out of 193 UN states that has never had a woman in its legislature? And would you put a time limit on how long is too long for that not to happen?
Is it okay if you can repeat your question? Thank you for the question.
Certainly. The proponent said that, and I'll trust their evidence for now, that the FSM is one of only 3 nations out of 193 UN members that has never had a female in its national Congress. Is that a problem? Do you see that as a problem? And if so, is there a certain amount of time that you would permit this to go on before you think something should be done?
I'm sorry, like you elaborate more on the question. All right, yeah, please.
Do you think that if the FSM continues for 100 years with no woman ever being elected to Congress, that something eventually should be done besides training and education, as you suggested, were the better measures?
Can you repeat it again?
No problem. Do you think that it's okay for the FSM to go on in perpetuity or forever, being a country with no females elected to the National Congress?
No, I do not think that is okay. But I do think that's a sign that we can improve the current status quo.
Thank you. And now I have a question for the proponents. You brought up a lot of issues that women have in the FSM, which is undeniable. Do you not think that the men can address these issues? Or can you say with certainty that the women being elected to the National Congress would help alleviate those issues?
Oh, can you repeat? Thank you for the question.
Sure, I'm sorry, I talk a lot. Can you say with certainty that having women elected to the National Congress would alleviate all of the problems that you set out, like domestic violence, like sexual abuse, other women's issues that undeniably exist?
I believe men, ideally they can represent these issues, they can help alleviate these issues, but physically they will never be able to understand what women go through biologically. Women are caretakers. They deal with things that men can never deal with, like pregnancy. That's why women talk to other women about having to carry a baby for 9 months and having to stay up every night taking care of their child that they nurture. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, judges. I think that's the end of the second debate for this morning. Time is now 12:58. We want to break for lunch and come back. But we ask that we break for 45 minutes. I hope that time will try to give Kosrae more time as they will be debating after lunch. So thank you very much. Another big round of applause to our again, check if there are more water and sandwiches for lunch. So debaters and coaches, make sure you don't leave the vicinity so we can start as early as we can.